can be. Conrad ate the clouds like cotton candy. I'm ready.
That was too much.
Welcome to Folie, Deux, the podcast where we rate and rant all things spooky. But really, it's just movies.
It's just movies.
It's just movies. And guess what?
It's Miller time.
It's Miller time.
I don't know if we can have that in there.
You know what, you saying they're not sponsoring us?
Not yet.
Miller, if you're out there, you are out there. I mean, they're out there. It's just...
Beer, if you're out there, I'm calling you.
And you know what? I missed you. I missed you so much. Not you. I'm talking about the people that are listening.
Oh, I actually thought you were talking about beer.
Oh, I missed that too.
That's what I was thinking.
I missed you guys. Where you been?
Okay, let's get into it.
Okay. As always, we spin what we call the spooky spinner. And the spooky spinner decides what movie we're going to watch.
I feel like we should have a sound effect for the spooky spinner.
Like, spooky. Maybe. I think we can invest in one.
Not yet.
I think I saw a couple on the market. We could probably pick one up.
We're not there yet.
We're close.
If Miller gives us a call.
Oh, man. The Spooky Spinner brought to you by Miller.
Miller Lite.
Miller Lite. So, Jessica, what movie did we land on for this episode?
We landed on Gerald's game.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. You mean the 2017 box office hit?
The 2017 one, yeah.
Okay. So the movie is Gerald's Game, like we said, from 2017, directed by Mike Flanagan. Jessica, do you know who Mike Flanagan is?
I did know a Matt Flanagan. We called him Flat Manigan.
It's the same guy. Did you not know that? He decided to switch it. So we got the director, Mike Flanagan. He wrote one episode of Haunting of Bly Manor. Very interesting.
Oh, I wonder which
Very
episode.
Interesting. He was a director of Hush.
I did like that one.
And Ouija.
I didn't like that one.
Origin of Evil. So I didn't watch that, but I didn't hear great things about it.
Yeah, because it wasn't
personally.
good.
That's why I didn't watch it. So for the cast, we've got Carla Gugino. She plays Jessie or Jess. And then you've got Bruce Greenwood, who played Gerald.
Jer.
Or Jer. And then I some of the other people that I have in here, notable would be like Henry Thomas, who played Tom, her dad. He's also in Haunting of Bly Manor.
Wait, Tom was the dad's name?
Yeah.
Huh.
Does that change everything for you?
Well, he calls her Mouse.
Oh my God.
And Jer.
What the fuck? Stephen King's a genius.
He's an idiot. Oh, Tom and Jerry.
What the hell? Okay.
Was that in any of your trivia?
Oh my God. Well, we've got also Carol Struken, who was Moonlight Man. That's all.
I'm sorry, what is the
Moonlight
first
Man.
name?
Carol?
Hmm.
Carel? I'm not entirely sure how to say the full name, but there you go. And kind of, like how we said, this movie
Do your own research.
itself was based on Stephen King's 1992 novel, Gerald's Game. And honestly, I'm not going to have a lot of fun facts like we normally do in these episodes. And I know that everyone just fucking loves them. But this episode, just like I'm noticing with the other Stephen King episode that we had, didn't have a lot of behind the scenes. Didn't have a lot of fun
I just revealed
facts.
the funnest fact.
I think you did, actually. No one's ever caught that, but that is not in my notes at all.
That's so stupid.
Oh my God. We should write a blog or make a blog, and then that's the only blog post.
I think we should tweet Stephen King and say,
you
gotcha.
son of a bitch, we got you. He just posts back like, damn. That emoji. So before we jump straight into the movie, Jessica, what's your initial thoughts?
Not good.
Wow. Okay.
It's less than In the Tall Grass. I have got to say, I'm not a huge fan of Stephen King.
No. I'm noticing that more and more. The more that we're watching.
The more we watch Stephen King, the more I dislike him.
Eesh. Ooh, okay. And one of the themes too that we noticed, or that we said in the Tall Grass episode,
One of the
was
tropes.
the tropes, the full list of tropes that we have. And you know what? I think I'm going to have to go through them again.
I think so.
So the 10 Stephen King tropes that we had set. Do you remember some of them? What are some of them?
There's like religious elements. There has something to do with addiction.
Mm-hmm.
Something set in Maine. One of the main characters is a writer. Main characters are either older or younger. Was that one of them?
Yeah, actually.
Okay.
Middle-aged adults or young kids. Someone has a special ability is another one.
Yeah, there's like a supernatural element.
Small town has a dark secret. There's a supernatural force of unexplainable evil. Uses aliens to explain things. And then, some type of incestual scenario.
The big one.
The big one that seems to be very prevalent in a lot of the movies.
So many of the ones that we've watched recently.
Yeah. So I guess with that, let's jump into the movie so we can get a good idea as to where we're seeing these tropes, as well as how did this movie go? And by the way, I don't think I even mentioned what I think. I wasn't a huge fan of this movie either. I actually noticed we were about halfway through. Someone rang our doorbell and we had a whole thing there where we're like, who the fuck is that?
We're watching it at night. Yeah, this is not an appropriate time to ring my doorbell.
It was pretty weird. It was like 8 o'clock, later than 8 o'clock. It's odd. And I had paused it. And then when we came back, I'm like, it's only been fucking half an hour. It's only been half an hour and we have a whole nother hour. It's only an hour and a half long.
It's not a long movie.
It's not technically that long, but
it's not good. It's not good.
So with that, let's jump in.
So we have our main characters, Jess and Gerald, and we start with them. They're going off on a weekend trip. It looks like they're going to their cabin. And there's a shot of each of them packing. And in the shot that we see Gerald packing, the last thing that he packs in his luggage are 2 intense, realistic handcuffs, which red flag right there is that, I mean, if any of you know the general theme of this movie, the theme is they're used for a sexual kink. So you don't use real handcuffs for that. No. Oh. Typically you don't. Use something softer.
Those furry ones.
The furry ones, or like they have leather on them or whatever. Yeah. Because you can seriously hurt yourself with real ones. Stupid. Anyways, so they're driving to this cabin. There's clearly like some sexual frustration between the two, where there's some kind of disconnect. And
it's very clear.
It's very clear that like their marriage. You see it in her face too. It's not even just like some of the things like he'll like reach over to her and he's like trying to like play with her, and then she like just takes his hand. You see it in gestures. You see like hear it in tones. You see it in facial
literally in her face.
Yeah. So clearly something's going off in their marriage. I think they've been married for a while.
For a while.
So they're going away to kind of spend the weekend together to try and rekindle the marriage. And they see this. Gerald almost hits this dog in the middle of the road who looks kind of shaggy, and it looks like a big German Shepherd.
Which, I mean, by the way, like he sits there and then like just honks his horn at it until it decides to move.
It bothered me because if I saw a dog, and we were talking about this, they're not far, like they're not out in the boonies. They're out on on a lake. So this is a lake home.
They have neighbors.
They're not right next to them, but they have neighbors. They're close enough to a city or a town where they have like maids and gardeners and people coming in to clean the house. And if I saw a dog, and they mentioned that this dog has a collar, if I saw a dog in the street picking at some like roadkill that had a collar on, I would try and call someone.
Lost for a while.
I would try and, I don't know, coax the dog into my car. I'm not that smart, but
I'm pretty stupid, but I mean, the dog's name is Cujo.
That's what it's listed.
Which, of course, is based on another Stephen King novel, Cujo. God. Which is that on the Spooky Spinner?
No, I think it should be though.
Probably.
Ugh. Anyway,
I don't know.
So they get it, and there's another issue with steak. I have another steak issue.
Ooh, lay it on me.
Yeah. So they go to the house. They're unpacking. She sees this like steak that's wrapped up in kind of the butcher paper. She takes it, cuts it up, puts it on a plate, and goes outside to try and coax the dog to eat and like give it something to eat. And Gerald comes out and he's like, that's Kobe beef. It's $200 a portion. I would be so pissed.
Yeah, I would too.
If you like steak, and if you cook steak, if you know anything about like cooking steak, you probably have heard of Kobe beef. That is expensive shit. Yep. I would be so pissed. I would get the ground beef.
Give us some bread or something. Give us some biscuits.
You know what?
Does it need to eat?
But this is coming from like I have done that before for animals where I had fresh salmon and I cut it up for stray cat.
Yeah.
That I saved a bunny from and then I felt bad because I was like, oh well, I took away your food because I saved the bunny. So here's some good salmon. Here's some sushi grade salmon. I've done that, but salmon was like $20.
And the cat went up to it. Ugh.
The cat was like, oh. Yeah. Anyways.
I only ate tuna.
Yeah. So whatever. I'm over it. But
I'm not. That was Kobe.
Kobe.
That's some good shit.
Yeah. So,
although technically I'm not a huge fan of Kobe. It's good. It's whatever.
It's good, but good. Whatever. I'd be pissed. Anyways. So they go in and...
Which he uses, by the way. He's like, oh, you're just such a good soul.
Yeah, he's...
Throwing away Kobe beef, you know.
Yeah, he's like, oh, it's so sweet. That's the woman I married. Yeah. Throwing away $200 on a stray.
And she goes, that's me.
So they go, we see them back in the bedroom. She slips into this silk gown, this like silk slip-on. And then he comes out and she's laying on the bed. He comes out just in some, are they briefs?
It's a boxer briefs.
Boxer briefs. Mm-hmm. And he has the 2 sets of handcuffs.
By the way, both of these older people,
they're hot.
They look great.
They're great. They're in better shape
than both of us.
Yes.
I'll admit it. I will admit it.
And she's gorgeous. She's she's gorgeous. He's fine.
He's fine.
He's in good shape. And anyway, so he comes out, he has the handcuffs, and she mentions like, oh, those are heavy duty. And he's like, well, the other ones are so flimsy. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Anyway. And so she's on the bed, and the bed is like this big wooden kind of bed frame with these.
It's a quality bed frame.
Yeah, with these very thick bed posts. Yep. And
open bed posts, right? Like they're pillars.
They're not connected. Up. They're pillars. Yeah. So he hooks, the handcuffs to each of her hands, and then those also hook up to the bedpost,
which have a decent amount of room in her wrists too, right? Like he could have gone harder. It could have gone a little bit.
Yeah, he could have gone. It's not like skin to metal or anything like that. She has some room, but so she's handcuffed, and he goes up, and we also see just before this that he takes a Viagra pill too.
Right. He took some prior, and then he takes it again.
He took it twice?
I'm pretty sure. Because he was in the bathroom by himself. There was like that scene where he was like looking at himself in the mirror. You don't think so? I feel like he did. And that led to him to what happens. Like taking too many.
So he takes Viagra. He drinks it down with a sip of water. And there's this shelf just above the bed that he puts the glass of water on. And so he crawls on top of her. And he has almost, I would say, like a mixture between a break-in fantasy and a rape fantasy that he's trying to play out with her that has clearly not been discussed between the two. And, consent, people. It's clear communication. Yep. So and you can see in her face the whole time as he's kind of like talking her through the role play, that she's not into it. You could there's clear signs that she's like uneasy, but still trying to kind of go with it.
She's like uneasy to the situation as well as specifically the handcuffs as well.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yep. So he's, he's getting more aggressive, and she is getting more frightened to the point where she kind of screams at him and tells him to get the fuck off. And then he kind of realizes like, oh wait, no, this isn't,
serious?
Are you playing? I can't tell. Which again, safe words.
You gotta have a safe word.
Go into any reputable sex store and they will tell you everything. Go online.
Well, they're old people. He's an old man.
He doesn't know how to use the
What
intranet.
is internet? What is intranet? He says intranet. And you're like, that's not
Grandpa.
something different. Yeah.
Anyways, so then, and he had also said, oh, you don't like daddy doing this or something, referring to himself as daddy, which she mentions, like, don't fucking call yourself that. I'm not into this. And she's still handcuffed and she's like, get me out of this.
Mm-hmm.
This is bullshit. She gets really upset. She explains that they haven't been intimate in months. He hasn't touched her, looked at her that way in months. And she gets really upset. You know, he kind of is realizing, like, yeah, something's fucked up here. But then he goes back into it and he's like, oh, but I'll be gentle.
Yeah.
To which she bites his lip to get him off again. And he gets really pissed. And then they start kind of...
What the hell?
Yeah.
That's my favorite lip.
The bottom one.
The bottom was my favorite one.
And so they get into it again. Anyways, he ends up having a heart attack as they're arguing, and she's still hooked up to the bed, and he crashes on her.
It's like one of those heart attacks, too, where they're just like, he had a massive heart attack where he dies immediately.
Fat,
big,
blue pill.
meaty heart attack where he dies like immediately on her.
Yeah.
Rather than just being like, I can't breathe. He's like...
Yeah. So, boom, he goes down.
Boom.
He's laying on top of her. She's freaking out. She's in shock. And she is trying to talk to him and be like, no, wake up. It's okay. Like, keep breathing. And she ends up pushing him off the bed. She tries to prop him up with her feet. And then he just kind of falls off the bed, which they have like a slate floor. So he hits his head. And she can see just kind of
like his hands
kind
of reaching
hands
out.
And the top of his head. So his arms are kind of sprawled out on the floor. And then all of a sudden she starts to see the blood start pooling around the top of his head. After a while, she's like screaming, help, help.
She's been screaming help for
like
what
5
seems like
hours.
just hours. Yeah.
The
sun goes down.
Yeah, we see the sun go down. It's a room full of windows, so we can see time passing clearly. And soon enough, because they didn't fucking close the front door when
she specifically looks back and sees the front door when they're walking in before they have all of these things.
So yeah, after she tries to feed the dog and he leads her back in, she looks back at the front door, and the front door is completely open. This is a very specific shot. Which, why the fuck wouldn't you close the front door?
She's just like, I hope this doesn't bite me in the ass.
No, the leg.
The leg.
So, anyways, so the door has been open this whole time. And then we hear kind of this walking through the house, and she's freaking out. She's like, what is that? Of course, it's the dog that's come back. Yeah. And the dog starts to kind of chew on Gerald that's dead. And
it's hungry.
It's hungry. It's a wild kind of stray, but not really stray because it has a collar stray. Yeah. And it starts chewing at him, pulls some flesh off of his arm, and she freaks out and she's like, get away from him. Like, fuck you. She hates the dog now, which I would be, you are my only friend in the world now. And to which we see Gerald get up and be like, Jesus Christ, kind of like, oh my God, that fucking dog. Yeah. And he starts talking to her. She's relieved because she's like, oh my gosh, you're awake. Fantastic.
Get me out of here.
And then she looks down and she sees Gerald's body again. Right. So we know that she's hallucinating. And he starts talking to her, and we are hearing stories of like that she's kind of recalling through his narrative. And he's telling her all these incidents like, oh, well, do you remember when I was this asshole and I was talking about women like they're just a life support system or a cunt? Weird. Anyways, so he's like telling a story that like he just spoke very crudely and she heard him and she just kind of ignored it. And then he also brought up a weird situation where she like found out about his Viagra prescription and didn't say anything, which what would you say? He's in his like 60s?
He looks like it. He looks great, by the way, but I guess. I'm just saying like the gray hair. I think like so.
He looks very good, but I would guess 60s probably, maybe, unless it's like he's great.
It's got to be mid 60s to like.
But yeah, but an appropriate age for like if you needed to. But and who the fuck, if you need to use Viagra, like when you're younger, fucking use Viagra.
Do it.
Whatever. Yeah. Why? I don't understand why that was a big deal. Why they like made it so shameful. I guess.
Well, what did she say? She was like, I didn't think
Yeah,
you
she
needed to use
she was like,
Viagra.
I didn't think that like you had to use Viagra around me or something
Is
like
it
that.
something
where it's
about
like,
myself? Is it
where,
me?
I mean, I get that people can be sensitive and turn in on themselves if like their partner or whoever they're with is like something's off, but people think that's like a weird thing.
I wish he would have just like stopped. Like he was in his like whole
I wish they would have just played a
like,
Viagra commercial. Anyway.
It was right at the camera.
Yeah.
Viagra.
There's like a little strip that says like, use coupon code Gerald's game for 20% off your Viagra.
Coupon code Cujo.
Cujo. Anyway,
Cujo bad dog.
so that was like a weird thing that they're like, well, I thought I was good enough for you. Which, like, again, she's smoking fucking hot. So I don't. He should have stopped him.
He's like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, I don't think that her body was the problem. Anyways, and then at the same time, we have Jess, who is free of the handcuffs.
Yep.
Come out, and like now we have another hallucination where she kind of hallucinates herself getting free of the handcuffs, like slipping her hand through the cuffs, like
easily,
clearly painfully.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
But like simple enough where she's not breaking anything, she's not cutting anything, and then she breaks off the bedpost, which we had been screaming about that.
They do not look that strong, at least from the base, but when you get higher, which she's shown, she can actually push them up all the way to the top.
I'm just upset that they didn't actually show the real Jess trying, because so they show a sequence of Jess getting out of one handcuff through slipping her hand and then breaking down the bedpost for the other one.
Yep.
And then she gets up, turns around, and we see our like Jess number one still cuffed to the bed. Right. So she's hallucinating Gerald and she's hallucinating her free self now. And then they start talking about how thank God for those little blue pills, because if he didn't need to take them, boom, he wouldn't have needed that water that was just above her head. Jess has water above her bed. And then they start talking about like, well, the body can only go so long without water. Which I pointed out to Rob. She looks great for her age, and she did not get there without intense hydration.
Right.
So I'm sure she'd be fine for a while. Anyways.
I go without water for like sometimes a day and a half.
Yeah, but we drink other shit.
I know. Yeah. I get that. But that's one of the bigger things with this movie too, is just like they make it seem like she's in
the desert.
The desert, like she's been there for like weeks.
Her lips are cracking already.
Like, everything that happens is within like 2 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 2 days.
So anyway, so we're shot back to the water. She's able to kind of shimmy it. So she gets the water, makes a little straw for herself so she can reach it, because her hand is cuffed, so she can't reach it all the way. Yep. And at this point, we have her hallucinations talking to her, and we see Jess starting to crash, because at this time, like, the sun is setting.
Right.
And we see Jess starting to crash from all the adrenaline. And she falls asleep, wakes up in the middle of the night, and there's this really like kind of like gaunt, very tall, slightly disfigured, bald man that's staring at her. He's like kind of standing in the corner in the shadows, like how every little kid, every person, if you wake up in the middle of the night and you look in the corner of your bedroom and it's just too dark to see.
He's like as tall as the door frame, and he's as square as the door frame too. So like he would easily just like kind of slide
he's a thin rectangle.
He would like slide in or out of the closet pretty easily.
So we see him, and he starts to approach her, and he shows her this like old doctor's bag. This leather bag that is full of like dried bones and old jewelry and stuff like that. And he kind of slinks away back into the corner while she's telling herself, this isn't real. You're not real. Like, this is a hallucination. And we have Gerald whispering in her ear, who's right next to her, saying like, if that's not a hallucination, why isn't the dog here anymore? Because the dog's been there the whole time. But just before that, we hear the dog like growling and then kind of run out of the room. So the viewer is left to speculate, is this real? Is this a hallucination? Anyways, she wakes up the next day, and Gerald's talking to her saying like, well, no one's come. You know, I had the maids come to put all the food, clean the house before we came here. The gardener was here just before we came, so no one's coming for a while. He calls her Mouse as like a little pet name. And she gets really freaked out. She's like, don't call me that. And she gets really upset. And then this triggers a memory of her at this lake house when she was 12 years old. She was with her family. Again, this was like a summer weekend trip.
Mm-hmm.
And we hear on the radio, like, there's going to be this eclipse that's happening this weekend. And her parents argue. We see her in the kitchen kind of listening to her parents argue because the family wants to go out on the boat, but Jess doesn't want to because she's scared of the water. Eventually, we see her pregnant mother, her 2 younger siblings, and it looks like some neighbors or something driving off in this boat to go watch the eclipse in the middle of the lake with everyone else. And her dad's there with her. They're sitting outside. They're sitting on a little bench outside waiting for the eclipse to happen. And he sits down next to her and they start talking. And clearly there's going to be some creepy incest scene that's about to happen because he's talking to her like, oh, that dress is really cute. No, it's not too short. Don't listen to your mom. Like all of that. So it's this whole buildup. And then they're sitting down. He's
essentially like grooming her.
He's absolutely grooming her. And so he is sitting down next to her. They're listening to music. She's waiting for the eclipse to happen with her little
eclipse watcher
goggles.
Yeah.
And he starts talking and being like, oh, I just remember when you were little and we would come up here sitting on this bench. You used to sit on my lap all the time.
Hint, hint, wink, wink.
Yeah. And then he does the whole like, oh, well, wouldn't it be so nice if we could kind of relive that? Like, no, never.
No, that's crazy.
Silly.
Why would I even think that?
And she, tries to appease him and sits on his lap because she thinks, oh, he's thinking of me as a little girl. Sweet father-daughter moment. Wrong.
No.
So the eclipse is happening. She's watching it, and he is staring at her bare shoulders with this creepy fucking look on his face. And eventually what we find out is that he is masturbating while she's on his lap, and she obviously realizes.
Yep.
And then we cut back to Jess in the bedroom, and both the hallucination Jess and Gerald are talking to her. And Gerald mentions like, oh, well, you never said that to me before. You never told me. And she's still in denial. And she's like, nothing happened. Then she talks about like nothing happened in the bedroom too. And then we find out that her father had come to her in her bedroom and approached her after this whole terrible, disgusting situation happened, sits down and was like, well, we're going to have to tell your mom. And I know you guys have been on bad terms lately, and she probably won't think that it's your fault, but she might. So again, he's using like this reverse psychology grooming on her. And so she ends up begging him, don't tell mom. I swear I won't tell anyone. And he just keeps telling her like, well, only if you promise not to tell anyone ever again. And we can't ever speak of it again. And so then we're kind of taken back to, okay, so this is the whole issue that she's been having with Gerald from the start that they got to the cabin to this, like, him calling himself daddy and this, like, kink and fantasy that she's absolutely not okay with because she had to actually live it in real life. We're taken back to Jess in the bed, and Gerald is talking to her, and she realizes that she's kind of like married a man like her father who has kept, like, he says like, I had all these secrets. You never knew who you married. Mm-hmm. And so she's kind of relating that to the secrets that her father had kept. And then she had to kind of protect and make sure that no one else. And so those were her secrets that were thrust upon her as well. And then Gerald points out like, that he mentioned something about the Moonlight Man, and which is obviously the guy in the room in the middle of the tall, creepy man. Mm-hmm. And he keeps referring to him as Death. And he's like, Death is coming for you. You're going to have to give him part of you and your ring and stuff. So like kind of tributes to Death. And he is playing out all of these like situations where they're going to find your body and you're going to look terrified. I'm going to be half-eaten. You're going to have bones missing, all this stuff. So he's cementing this terrible realization that she's not getting out of here unless she does something extreme.
Right.
Which reminds her, again, of after the talk at the cabin when she was 12 with her father. They're sitting down to eat, and they're all talking. Her mom asks, oh, well, we saw the eclipse. It was great. Like, how was it for you guys back here at the house? And Jess is sitting there. She has her hand around her water glass and it just shatters because she's like clenched it so hard.
They made a specific shot in which she clenched it when the father came over and started touching the unborn baby.
Oh yeah,
So
that's
I think
right.
that's why
And she mentions too like how she couldn't just be a kid anymore. She
Right.
had to be on the defense for herself and for her younger sister, and then, you know, for the unborn baby, which
Yep.
I think we're led to believe is a girl.
Yep.
So she clenches the glass, cuts her hand. Her dad takes her to the bathroom, wraps it up, and then we're taken back to the bedroom, and we have the Jess hallucination telling her like, okay, you know what you have to do now. You have to do it quick, and you're already dehydrated because now it's like turning into night on the second day.
Yep.
And she says you're already dehydrated, and what is blood? It's slick as oil when it's wet.
Mm-hmm.
So Jess grabs the glass that she...
Which, by the way, when all this is happening, the dog has been in the room and has been eating Gerald
this whole time, just picking off little pieces.
And at this point, the dog has already tried like licking her, woke her up one time, licked her, and bit her because she kicked it in the face.
Yeah.
So, and Gerald was using that to, or like, you know, dead Gerald was using that to her, being like, it's coming for you.
Yeah, either way, you're going to die.
Yeah.
You're going to die by dehydration, starvation, or the dog.
Or the dog.
You know? So anyway, so she takes the glass that she has kind of available to her, shatters it against the shelf that's just above her head, and shimmies a shard in between, like a little crack in the shelf.
Yep.
And she... Which I thought that she was just going to like slit her wrist horizontally.
Get her wrist nice and lubed up.
And she mentions like there aren't as many nerves in the wrist.
Yeah.
And like
I took that as she researched the best way to commit suicide based on her past trauma and not knowing how to deal with it.
Yeah.
I just took it like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, because there are references in the movie too that they're like, oh, well, like you've thought about this kind of. Right. So she slits her wrist, but she does it in a way that's so unbelievably dramatic.
Yeah.
She like she gouges her wrist.
At the first initial, we're like, all right, there you go.
Yeah.
And then she just keeps cutting along the side, or like she cuts horizontally.
She cuts her wrist, and then she moves up to her
vertically
hand,
up, down the center of her hand. So and this is like a big shard of glass. This isn't just like a little piece. This is like a thick shard of glass that she has slammed into her wrist and dragged her hand down. You guys should have seen how Jessica reacted. She was like, okay, wait, no, stop.
It's
stop.
Too much
oh my
blood.
God.
It's too much blood because you don't have to do all that.
No.
You absolutely don't. If you're trying to get your hand slick, you don't need that much.
That's a lot of blood.
That's a lot of blood. Break your fucking thumb first.
I thought
Try that.
I didn't even think it was real, just based on how much, because it was the skin, so she started pulling down, and then the skin started folding up, so you could see like her muscle and her tendons.
So she does that, and I'm like, Jesus Christ. Okay, she's going to pop her hand out.
Yeah.
Well, she doesn't just pop her hand out. She scalps her hand.
Yeah.
She pulls it to the point where you can see all of the nerves and the muscles. She peels back the skin by pulling her hand through the cuff, which I was like...
I think they did a pretty good job on how it looked, because it made me feel...
It was disgusting.
Yeah, it was gross.
Which, kudos to you.
Kudos.
It was just fucking disgusting. Yep. And...
But...
I'm not saying that was bad. I'm saying
she's free.
But yeah, she is free, so on one side. Yep. And so, but she's super weak too, because she could barely like break the glass, because, you know, a day without water, you're useless. Well, a day without a lot of water, let's say, because she has had some. Anyways, so.
She hasn't eaten too at the same time, so.
Yeah, I mean, she doesn't look like she eats a ton anyways. So she jumps on the other side of the bed because she's still hooked up on one side, and she tries to push it over. She tries to push the whole bed, which if those bed posts aren't breaking, how heavy is that fucking bed? I can't even really move ours.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't.
I'm weak, but anyway, so she scoots the bed over because, conveniently enough, the nightstand is probably 4 feet away from the bed,
It's
as
insane.
most nightstands are.
I want to make sure I can't reach anything.
I don't want to reach anything. I want to feel like I can put another nightstand there.
I want to charge my phone all the way on the other side of the room.
It's so stupid. So anyway, she tries to push the bed enough so she can reach her phone that's on the ridiculously far away nightstand.
To the point where she jumps back on the bed, and then she still has to use her feet just
she
to
has
grab
to
it.
stretch with her arm extended and her legs extended, grab it with her little toes, and bring it over on the bed, only to find out that, no charge.
Dead battery.
The battery. So,
but that was the other thing too that like we pointed out. After she's been yelling and screaming for the first initial like 5 hours, it wasn't until later she like noticed that she had a phone. Her phone was to her right this whole time.
That would be the first thing I think of.
You look around everywhere.
If he passed out too, I'd be like, shit, I have to call 911. Let me try and stretch. And we tried to like figure out if we could possibly, like how flexible we could move our appendages. I think I could do it.
Yeah. Well, okay. So there's points where she's laying down, and then there's points where she's sitting up, where she can clearly sit up, and there's more room for the
she could
handcuffs to slide up. Exactly. If she can crouch, then let's just say she gets to that crouch, she could get her feet up against the bed frame, and then just like push with her strong ass legs, because her legs are strong enough to push him off of her. So use that, and then push as hard as you can on the poles that aren't that thick. Plus, you have the handcuffs all the way up here.
Wait, where are her legs?
If she's up in the
crouching.
position crouching, she can go forward.
And do what?
What do you mean?
Break the post that way?
She's going to break the post that way.
She's going to break her arms first.
She's not going to break her arms.
She's going to dislocate her arms first.
She could go like this.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
You are holding it like this. You're not going to break your arms this way.
Know.
I don't know how you're going to break your arms like that.
I don't know.
But what I'm saying is they give too much room for her to be able to do things like that. She doesn't even try. I think that's the biggest thing with this whole movie is we don't see her try to do anything except just sit there, lay, and just yell, help, help, to where the point where she doesn't have voice anymore.
I'd like to see I'd like to see her struggle more.
Yeah, please.
Anyways, so her phone's dead. She is able to go to like the other nightstand or like the counter in the bathroom that's just off the bedroom. She's able to kind of like push the bed enough where she can grab the keys that unlock the cuffs with her gross, like peeled off hands.
Floppy
that's
hand.
all slick and oily.
Yep. Which, by the way, is the same hand where she broke the glass as a kid. I don't know if they did that on purpose or
I'm
if
sure
it
they
just
did. And she's able to unlock the other cuff. Then at this point, so she's kind of stumbling around. She goes into the bathroom, and instead of grabbing a towel or a piece of fabric to tie that shit up,
tight,
she uses 2 pads.
Pads of what?
Sanitary napkins. What do you mean, pads? Pads.
So she uses 2 maxi pads.
2 maxi pads. Even with a heavy cloth.
And just wraps her hand up with 2 of those.
It's not even wrap. Like she doesn't even fully wrap it. She just kind of like is cradling her arm because she's a fucking idiot. Anyways, so she is walking to. She grabs
That'll do it.
I hate it. Just puts on like a big Barbie Band-Aid.
On it.
So she grabs the car keys from the dresser and stumbles down the hallway. And we see, like, as she's walking out, we see the dog growling at something down the hallway. He's looking down the hallway and then, like, kind of run away. And so again,
you're like,
someone's there.
It's the Moonlight Man.
So she walks by him and she kind of confronts him and he's standing over her. And he's just like, has this weird, like, goofy grin on his face. And she takes off her big honkin' wedding ring.
It's a big ass ring.
It is a huge ring. And she drops it in his bag as kind of like a token for him.
Yep.
And and he just kind of stands there and she walks away. She goes to the car. As she's like pulling out, she sees Gerald just kind of waving at her.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And so she drives away.
Bye, bitch.
Bye, bitch. She drives away and she is like you can tell she's fading in and out because, of course, she's lost so much goddamn blood.
Right.
And so she's driving in and out, and then she passes out. She crashes, but she gets down the road far enough to the neighbor's house. So the neighbor, like, she can see their lights turn on. She starts honking the horn, and she stumbles out of the car as we can see, like, two distant figures come out, and they're obviously the neighbors with flashlights, and she's stumbling towards them. She goes, "Hi."
Hi.
And then she just passes. She passes out. So then the next scene we cut to is she's writing a letter, and she's reading kind of this out loud in her head. She's writing a letter. Her hand has like some kind of like nerve brace on it because she says that she's had all these surgeries, but it's still painful to write. But it makes sense that it's painful to write this letter. And we come to find out that Gerald was a lawyer. So that's how they made all their money. That wasn't the big reveal. But anyway, so we come to find out, like, she goes through all the legal processes, and she is living in New Orleans. She still has a hard time sleeping because every single night she sees the Moonlight Man in the corner of her room still. Mm-hmm. And then she talks about how she was reading the paper, and she finds out that the Moonlight Man was actually real, and he was a serial killer. He was a homosexual serial killer because, well, he was a necrophilia.
Yeah.
But so he would break into he would break into like mausoleums and graves, and he would start stealing bones and jewelry, and then it escalated to actually attacking people, men in their sleep and assaulting them. And that's how he got caught. And when they go find his house, they see that he had killed his brother and sister, who he called like mom and dad again. Mm-hmm. And we see that like he had all of these jars of human remains and this and that. So we find out that the Moonlight Man was actually real for her. And luckily enough, he wasn't into women.
Yep.
So, hey, kudos. So, and we also find out that Jess has become either a therapist or a counselor to kids who have been abused. And she retells her trauma to them, something that she's always kept secret and never told anyone, that she now tells on an almost daily basis to try and help them work through their trauma. Mm-hmm. And then final kind of scene is we're brought to the serial killer, the Moonlight Man's trial.
His actual trial,
his arraignment. And she walks up to the courthouse. She walks in the courtroom that's filled with people.
They're just about to give the sentence.
They're reading off all of his charges.
Right.
And so they're reading it off. She's walking down the aisle of the courtroom, and no one says anything.
They let her in. First of all, they just let her in.
They didn't even let like media in.
Yeah.
They said this. They're like, they're like, no one, the media is not allowed in here. And she just walks straight fucking in. And she stands there and she goes, "Hey." Hey. And then finally the judge is like,
what the fuck?
Yeah, the judge is like, ma'am. And she walks past the wooded gate. She like pushes open.
The guards would have like tackled her immediately.
Someone would have tased her, I hope.
I thought that was going to happen.
And she walks past like the kind of guards, the little court doors, and she walks straight up to him. He turns around, he goes, "Hey, you're not real.
You're made of moonlight."
Which is
and he like breaks out of. They don't even have him in cuffs. It didn't look like they were like the plastic.
They were zip ties. I was like,
what the fuck?
Which he's like, what, 7'2"? Yeah. So he breaks out of the cuffs and goes, "You're not real," which is exactly what she had said to him when she first saw him, and then when she passes him when she's leaving the house and says like, "You're made of moonlight." And so he says that to her, and as she's looking at him, we see her father, his face kind of flash over. We see Gerald's face flash over, and then we see the Moonlight Man's face, and the camera pans back to her, and she goes, "You look so much smaller." And then she walks out of the courtroom. She just leaves. Yep. She walks out of the courtroom, and then she walks down the fucking middle of the road.
She throws on her sunglasses, like, my job here is done. Bitch.
Yeah.
And then goes right down the middle of the street into the sunset.
The worst.
Cue Eclipse credits. You know what? The only other fun fact I had was about the Moonlight Man. So Jesse says the Moonlight Man suffers from a disorder called acromegaly, and that's like a disorder that causes enlargement of the hands and feet, as well as his forehead and chin, which is why he is so tall. The guy that plays him actually has the disorder in the movie, so he's a real tallman. Yeah, that was the movie.
That was the movie. I wasn't a fan of it. It felt very long. And some of the movies that we have reviewed, we've seen, I would say at least 2 times.
Mm-hmm.
You know, once before and then once right before recording.
Yep.
This was the first time we saw it, and it felt like the 3rd time watching it.
Yeah. I think that's fair. I was like, I get it. Enough.
Well, there were a lot of things that, because I have only seen just kind of little previews and trailers and stuff like that. And we almost called everything that happened in the movie.
Yeah. Literally.
We are amazing. No, but it's a very... If
you can't, you're watching movies wrong.
It's just a very predictable movie, especially knowing that this is based off a Stephen King novel. It was very disappointing for me. But let's go.
Yeah. You know what? Let's hear what other people have to say about this movie. Yeah, let's do that. So, the average IMDb review. What do you think the average number is for people of our age?
Probably because it's Stephen King. I think it's going to be higher than I would expect. So I would guess like a 6.3.
Pretty close.
What is it?
6.6
oh,
for female and a 6.8 for male.
I'm getting good at this.
You're all right. Let's jump into it. Review number 1, and I think I want to note too the review number 1 I usually have as what's voted as the most helpful. So as reviewers and as users of the review, you can go through and you can rate which one that you felt was most useful.
You can review the reviews.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. So this one had the most like this out of this many gave a thumbs up. So review number 1. Contains all the pain and heart of the novel. 10 out of 10.
I don't want to read the novel then.
10 out of 10. Other viewers can complain all they want about this film being tedious or bland or slightly missing the mark or opportunity, but I strongly disagree. It makes me wonder if they got the point of the novel even. Stephen King is not a horror writer. So much as he is a writer of characters and extraordinary events that they go through.
They're all the fucking same characters. Yeah.
God. And most importantly, he writes about the deep emotional experiences that people endure in their lifetimes here on this earth. He tends to throw in dark elements, to be certain.
Incest.
Dark elements. And some of those are downright creepy, frightening, or straight up horrific.
Incest.
This does not make him a horror writer. And anyone expecting a horror film here will subsequently be disappointed and, yes, apparently bored.
Ding, ding, ding.
I was not bored. I was riveted the entire time.
I would say this person needs to get out of the house more, but we're under quarantine. So.
They themselves are tied to their bed frame watching this. It's not easy to do what Mike Flanagan does with his adaptation. He nails the mental struggles and fractured psyche of the main character, Jessie, under the strain of what she faces. He also delivers on the heart of King's story, which isn't the present situation she finds herself in as an adult, but rather dealing with secrets and ghosts from her past that have haunted her all her life, without her even truly knowing till her current situation arises.
Repression, yes. That is a thing.
Yep. It's a beautiful novel of pain, suffering, secrets, abuse, and the struggle to not just survive, but also to heal and thrive, if possible.
What a nerd.
I was going to go, no, and thrive. Flanagan's film captures the heart of King's story and is beautifully rendered, and many scenes are equally visually stunning. I cried at the end of the movie.
I bet you cry about a lot of things.
Bruce Greenwood and Carla Gugino turn in excellent performances, among the best I've seen from both of them. Henry Thomas is equally and fittingly gross. Very, very well done. Even younger Jessie, played by
I did not
name
like.
I don't want to.
I didn't
even
like
try.
her acting.
I didn't either.
I thought it was pretty shitty. And a lot of the actors were in The Haunting of Hill House.
It was very odd. Well, I mean, there's a lot of connections too with Mike Flanagan. Flatmanigan and those other actors. So this is just a terrific movie. And I find every scene featuring Carl Strucken to be extremely creepy. So I'm not certain how other reviewers find this movie lacking in creep value. I just can't disagree more. I love this movie. It's insane. It's instantly and already in my top 15. Maybe even my top 10 favorite films of all time.
Oh, baby, shut the hell up.
Well done. I'll be watching this one more than once.
One more than once? Twice?
This is in my top 10. I'm going to be watching it at least one more time. This is Jessica. What do you think of that review? I spit on you.
That was... So, I mean, to give this, 10 out of 10 did they say?
10 out of 10.
You asshole. No, not at all. This is probably like a Stephen King fanatic that's writing this. I do think it was interesting. Jess was never physically sexually assaulted in kind of the traditional sense, but it was absolutely sexual abuse.
Oh, for sure.
And which I think is a really interesting, especially coming from a victim's perspective, is an interesting kind of justification to not tell, because there are a lot of reasons why victims will say I just can't, you can't talk about it. And then to kind of turn it and be like, well, because she says in the movie, like, he didn't touch me. He didn't ever touch me, which I do think that element was like very interesting because you have a lot of like victims that can approach it. And then with that on top of it, of saying like, well, he never actually did anything physically to me. I think that was interesting, but that kind of like ends it for me for the intrigue as far as Stephen King shit goes.
Right.
I do think the Moonlight Man was at his scariest when he was in the shadows and we couldn't fully see him.
I didn't want to see him.
I feel like they overdid his makeup, and which I get, they were like trying to accentuate everything. But when he speaks and when we see him in full light, he looks just like, he doesn't look that scary to me. So when he's just in the shadows and we don't know what he actually looks like, I think that's the scariest point for me. After that, everything is broken. Yeah. So fuck you. Fuck your review.
Well, okay. So you didn't find that review
helpful?
So,
no.
Okay. Well, let me throw a review number 2 at you. Okay, let's see what you think about this one.
I'll throw it right back at you.
Okay. I don't think I'm going to watch this movie again.
Yep.
3 out of 10.
I like this person.
Yeah. I don't care if this was originally written by Stephen King or how faithful the film really is to the book. This film is garbage.
Ooh.
That's how it is. Its script is so dumb, and I don't know what it wants to be. It starts as a drama, and then it turns into a thriller and adventure.
I don't think it really turns into adventure. No. I would say it stays consistently thriller, but I don't really, unless they're talking about the car ride.
That's not adventure. No. The husband handcuffs his wife to the bed and to have hardcore sex with her.
Yes.
They get in an argument and he dies. Now it's up to the woman to survive while she is tied to the bed while the dog eats his husband's corpse on the floor. I think he meant to say her,
but I don't want to put words.
This is their review. So after this point in the movie is full of fillers, pacing issues, pointless background stories, hilarious hallucinations, and boring dialogues are everywhere.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. The film has some good moments, which prevent me from giving a 1 out of 10, but other than that, it's a complete mess. And don't even get me started on the dumb ending. As I stated earlier, the movie begins as a drama and then turns into a thriller and adventure.
Did you write this?
No. In the end, it becomes a horror film. What?
I think they mean with the hand peeling
away,
okay, and then the serial killer.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you say the end, I'm thinking literally the end of the movie, but turns out she was not hallucinating. The ghoul was real along, and then once she gets out of bed, as a narrator, she explains Ghoul's character for several minutes as the film was all about Ghoul.
I'm more interested in the ghoul.
I am too. And in the end, it turns out the ghoul is actually a human with some disease that makes him look like a ghoul.
The ghoul.
What is the point of this film? 3 out of 10.
Gabagool.
Gabagooey.
I think that's an accurate review.
I think it's accurate. I think they could have had more specifics as to like what.
Well, they don't have a podcast, Rob.
They could have typed it out. Their hand isn't cut up.
We don't know.
They seem to do okay. Review number 3. What a mess. 1 out of 10. This is one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. It started off a little interesting, and then the husband died, and then it just got ridiculous. The husband was dead. But then a second version of him gets up and starts talking to her. And then a second version of herself starts talking to her. Then they were all talking to each other. And then it just keep getting more and more confusing after that.
I don't think it was really confusing.
I don't think it was confusing either. It was just
I don't have an issue
bland.
with like the hallucinations. It's the plot and the dialogue that I'm just not interested in.
Yep. Then out of nowhere, a Slender Man type of person appears and takes her ring. What the heck?
She gives it
to him.
Excuse me?
And then she ends up actually meeting with herself as a child and went to court to see the Slender Man for some reason, even though he barely had anything to do with the story at all.
She did. I didn't mention that. The letter that she was writing in the end, she was writing to herself. And then we have a flashback of her kind of presenting this letter. Right. So, yeah.
Just a bizarre mess of a movie. 0 stars.
Yes.
And then the last review, just because these are pretty short.
Okay.
A perverted, sick movie. 1 out of 10.
Yes.
A pathetic, pretentious, sick movie.
Keep going.
Take SM sex games, add incest and child abuse, that too from Stephen King's own Dolores Claiborne, and try to pass it off as a blow for feminism.
See, I don't the whole sex kink thing, whatever. Mm-hmm. But my issue was that they clearly did not talk about it.
No, they didn't talk about this at all.
There was not consent there.
She's so expressive in her face too. It's just like, look at her. How can you not tell that she is not enjoying anything?
And unless you specifically talk about okay, this is the role play that we're going to do. This is the safe word that we need to have. You don't jump into shit like that. And you
do it more. There's many different, and there could be another reason, something's wrong or whatever. So then you know that something is wrong.
Yep.
Anyways, abusive, incestuous father.
Yep.
Bullying husband.
Yep.
A homicidal psychomaniac. All males. Get it?
That's a guy.
It could be, yeah. All these bad males and a chained woman. A helpless child. That's feminism in your face. I think they took it the wrong way. I think they took this movie the wrong way.
I guess I didn't really see it as a triumph for feminism or a triumph for feminism.
Yeah.
It might be a little sensitive.
All of that, but done in the most salacious, disturbing manner.
You know what? I'm not going to say it.
A very, very sick movie. That's it.
Go back to church.
All right. So here we are at the end.
Thank God.
Jessica, what is your final review?
Okay, so rewatchability. No, yes. Absolutely not. It seemed like forever the first round. I would not recommend this to people. I did like the part where she was ripping her hand off because that grossed me out. Yeah. That was good. Mm-hmm. The movie sure was shot well. I don't really have any big issues with that. The way they did the eclipse was fine, whatever. Visually it was fine, but for me, it just wasn't a good movie. It was very predictable for me. Mm-hmm. So sick of Stephen King. So for me, I would probably give it a 3.2.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Let me just put that in the bank. Put 2. So I actually gave it a 3.1.
Shut the
This might be the first movie where I rated it technically lower than you. But yeah, I mean, very similar to what you said about this movie. I'm agreeing as well. The rewatchability is a big one
It's
where
not
I
there.
just don't want to watch it again. I could care less. I think
I didn't want to watch it the first time.
there's elements about this. This is actually, it's kind of close to like In the Tall Grass, where like there's things about it that
that could have
that's
worked.
actually
Yeah.
insane. And could be very scary.
Mhm.
Certain situational kind of things. I can you can read this movie like a book. I agree. There's like themes within the movie that it's just like screaming at you, and you're like, I get it, stop. But then they keep going further, and you're like, no, I don't think you get it. Let's keep going further on it. And you're like, no, I'm fine.
It did feel kind of disjointed for me, where like they would cut to certain things, and like it just didn't really. I don't know. It felt like it didn't really flow that well.
Yeah. I honestly, like, one of the bigger issues for me, like if the movie is specifically in this one room, at least for the majority of the movie, make it a little bit more believable for me as someone who, like, I'm here watching her struggle being stuck in this situation.
I would
when
like to
I'm
see her-
looking at all the options.
Yep.
I want to see the whole room,
Mhm.
which they like don't do until she's like, oh yeah, I should probably look around here. You're like, yeah, no, fuck. You've been in there for like 5 hours and
Yeah.
you're just saying, help, help.
Yeah.
And then now you decide to start looking around. It bothered me because it's just like, why wouldn't someone be looking around instead of just being like, I can't do anything?
The absolute first thing you do is, how can I get myself out of the situation?
The bed, just like the choice in like the frame that they use, really bothered me too. You're just like, just the fact that I have the thought of, why aren't you trying to do this? At least try this or do this or anything. And we don't see that happening.
Mhm.
And so like the whole time it made me care less and less because I
Mhm.
don't actually see her doing anything about it.
Mhm.
And then when she does do something about whatever, it's like a huge jump. So like
Yeah.
when she was cutting her wrist, you're like, oh my God.
She almost cuts her hand off.
Jesus Christ. So like she goes from like not doing much to doing
too much.
to way too much.
Yeah.
And granted, she got out, but it's like, there could have been a different way.
Well, that's the thing where like dislocate, like try and pop your thumb out of your socket.
Yep.
Like she could have gotten out that way, and whatever.
So, yeah, I'm giving it a 3.1. I mean, and I think we should make this clear too. Like for how I think about movies, I tend to always start with a baseline like 5, and a 5 out of 10 is like, it's a solid movie.
Solid movie.
I'm not saying it's great. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just like, it's like what I expect a movie to be.
Mhm.
And then from there, it goes up or down.
Yeah.
I know that there's people that like to start at a 10, which I think is, for me, I think that's kind of weird.
10 is
like,
very high. 10 would be like very.
It's just like, to me, like it means to me that I'm expecting a movie to be perfect, and then you dock it from there. I can understand that, but for me, I just can't think that way. I'm like, I think a movie should be a solid movie. Like if you're going to make a movie with a huge budget, right? Like if you have a movie with a big budget, millions of dollars, you should probably know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming that is at least a competent movie.
Yeah.
And then from there, it goes up or down. So that's kind of how we think about our ratings.
Mm-hmm.
So it might seem that we're a little harsh on movies or what. But then again, you know what?
We are here to rate and rant.
God damn it. So with that, thank you so much for listening. We put out 2 episodes a week, so make sure to look out for them every Monday and Thursday.
This Thursday will be a fun one.
Yeah, this Thursday is a Thanksgiving episode coming out on Thanksgiving. Follow us on social for more updates regarding new episodes like this upcoming Thanksgiving episode. And give us a follow on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest. Just look for at FAD_podcast. That's us. And guess what? We're also on YouTube. So if you'd rather watch us on YouTube as well,
we have a really fun intro.
And we have a really cool intro. So and Jessica worked really hard on it. So we are everywhere as well. So if you want to hear us on our website, or you want to go to Spotify or Apple, guess what? We're on all those. So that's pretty sick.
And as always, send us recommendations for movies. We have a list. Please. We always need more, though.
Yeah. Even if we have it on there, we'll throw it on there again.
We'll give a little shout out.
Yeah, give a little shout out to the person.
Yeah.
So, with everything said, adieu to you, Jessica.
And Folie, adieu to you. So.
Blow the man down, and pray pay attention and listen to me. Give me some time to blow the man down. I'm a deep water sailor just in from Hong Kong. Give me way, blow the man down. If you give me some